Hello, I'm Ben. Welcome to the channel. So today I'm going to do a brief video on 10 habits that can vastly improve your work life. And this is loosely based on an article a gentleman named Matt Gray released on LinkedIn. And I agree with a lot of his stuff and wanted to put that out there. I disagree with some part of it, but let's jump into it. So this is 10 habits that will vastly improve your work life. So number one thing on his list is sobriety. Sobriety has given him everything he needed. So sound sleep, no depression, no anxiety, and optimism. Here's the thing about alcoholism or relying on drugs or participating in drug usage, etc. Over time, that does impact your view of the world and in fact your view of yourself. But physically, it can reduce your ability to get up and get after it, right? You'll lose your energy. You'll lose that stick-to-itiveness that people have naturally to get after their goals and try that. So number one on his list is sobriety. I think that's a good suggestion. Number two, he says hell yes or no. It's important to say no to things fast and only say yes to the things that are a hell yes, which I think that's a bit much. Protect your time and energy. I think you protect your time and energy, and I think you do say yes or no. And we talked about once in a different video how people typically, instead of saying no, they make up some lie or some reason. Why do that? Why create a sin for yourself because you can't say no? It's very simple. Say yes, say no. If it's something that makes sense, then say yes. If it doesn't make sense, then say no. So that's number two, say yes or say no. Number three is no agenda, no meeting. Time is your most valuable asset. Don't waste it in useless meetings. If you're going to meet, map it out and have it systemize success. I don't disagree with this. I think if you have no agenda, there's no reason for a meeting. Here's the reason that you should have a meeting. If you have concise expectations or concise messages you want to deliver to multiple people at one time and get their feedback. The idea should be twofold. One, you have those expectations, but two, you want that feedback. You should want participation. If you're not wanting participation, you're just trying to get a message out there, then send an email. Don't use text, send an email. When it's in an email, it's a document that's dated, right? And you can click it where that shows you when they open it, etc. Send an email. You don't know who's going to receive a text. You don't know who's going to see the text or anything private. You don't want to send via text anyway because it could just pop up on the front of their phone. And you may have people reading stuff that's private. So send an email if there's no agenda. If there is an agenda with clear expectations and feedback that is necessary, then set a meeting and have a meeting. I've worked in many places and consulted for many places that have a set weekly meeting schedule. The problem with that is open communication kind of goes away because people say, well, I just ask about the next meeting, and then they forget. So use those other things to continue that energetic feedback and don't have it where people are waiting once a week for a meeting. And I can tell you, I've worked for companies before where we had the same meeting schedule every single week, no matter what was going on. You would get into a meeting, you're literally talking about the same exact stuff you were talking about last week. If you need an update, send an email, get an update. There's no reason to continue to beat people to pieces and flog a dead horse for a meeting. The next one is number 4, the AED system. This is actually a good system. It says automate, eliminate, and delegate. First, eliminate what you can, then make systems around what you're going to do and delegate the rest. That is a great suggestion. If you're in leadership, you do want to have a pattern of things where you're doing things every day. If you have that pattern, then you have what we call the exponential effect, where if you take small steps daily, ultimately at the end of the year, be miles beyond where you were to begin with. So automate, do things naturally and automatically. Eliminate the things that serve no purpose. Do what makes sense and don't do what doesn't. And delegate the small things that should make sense and be necessary to other people that can responsibly handle those appropriately. Number 5 is energy audit. Look after your energy. You can't pour from an empty cup. Take your time to reflect on what gives you energy. So here's what I say about that. I agree with that. Energy is necessary, and you should audit what you're using your energy on. Eat That Frog was a great suggestion in that book, where you handle the one thing you dread every day first to get it out of the way. That way you can have revised, rejuvenated energy for everything else that matters for the rest of the day. So that energy audit is appropriate, and I would say that if you do those things specifically where you handle the worst thing of the day first thing, then the rest of the day you can have your full attention on the things that you're putting your energy into. So your energy is being utilized in a productive way. Productive utilization of your energy is the only way to create more energy, okay? And it will get the ball rolling. It will get that momentum so you can start laying things down more quickly. Number 6 is no meetings in the morning. He's got some notes around that. I don't disagree with that. He says consolidate all meetings to 1 day per week. You can't do that, especially if you're across multiple departments. If you have a small business, 10 employees or less, you absolutely can do that. The problem is if you have everything scheduled, watch out for that open communication piece. You should have people, an open door policy is how you impact some of that, but have people respond with things and key communications as often as possible, and then have direct, specific sharing of information once or twice a week. No meetings in the morning, I agree with that. When you start your day with a meeting, it drains the life right out of whatever you got to do. And if you're like me and you write a list the day before that you want to attack the very next day, and if you're eating that frog, which means you're handling the most annoying piece of your day first thing, a meeting is just getting in the way of that. It's getting in the way of you starting your day in an appropriate manner. So I do think that. I think meetings are most likely best around 10 a.m. or 2 p.m. One, because 10 a.m. you give people a couple hours to get their day going. And then 10 a.m., you're still in productive time. You're not getting people right before lunch, so they're thinking about other things. Also, you want to think about people's circadian rhythm, when they're tired, when they're good to go, and when that energy from the food is going to hit. So 10 o'clock is when people should be hitting their stride. On a first shift conversation is what I'm talking about here. And then after lunch, you want to talk about 2 o'clock. Give people an hour or so to get back and get that sluggishness from coming back from lunch, get them redirected, and then get back after it. I like 10 and 2 just because it gives enough time before and after, and it works out well for the remainder of the day. Number 7 is daily deep work. 4 hours of deep work. 12 hours is better than 12 hours of distracted work. Protect your mental energy and get into your flow daily. I agree with that completely. When you look at the Harvard Review and a lot of other psychological or industrial and organizational psychology, when you look at those reports and things that they release, what you find out is people typically work 4 hours a day or less on things that are actually meaningful. Most of the stuff is distractions from email, distractions from an iPhone and text and all those things. So you miss out on the quality of work. Here's the thing. Your education, your intellect, what you read, all those things are only going to be in play at maximum capacity if you are focused on what you're doing. So I've said in the past, people that think multitasking, I always say micromanagement when I mean multitasking. People that think that multitasking is valuable, they're completely wrong. Multitasking is doing a lot of things poorly. If you can focus on what you're working on and do your deep work, then you're pouring in your full education, your full experience, your full knowledge of the situation. You're going to have a much, much greater impact. So I agree with that. Number 7, daily deep work. 4 hours of deep work should be your target every single day. And the rest of that time, prep and distraction and all those other things that come up, the noise that's in being in operations like you are, whatever that may be, it's still important, a lot of those things, but the deep work that you're doing is what's going to move your business along. We've talked also in the past about doing things that are urgent instead of things that are important. So you have a hierarchy of things that you have to do and get done. And a lot of times urgent things constantly interrupt. You're talking about the same thing here. So that deep work, those things that are very important, you need to push off all the urgent stuff. If you do not, what happens is people see that urgent matters, and so then everything becomes urgent. And if you have weak leaders, or if you have a huge matrix leadership or matrix type organization, certain departments, everything they will do, they declare is urgent. And so what you have is you have people that want to dominate your time, which takes away from your contribution that you're getting paid for, because it's diminishing the amount of deep work you can do on your schedule. So be leery of that, pay attention to that, and then based on what comes across, automate, eliminate, and delegate. I agree with that. Number 8 is quarterly results. Give your mind, body, and spirit a reset every quarter. Take a step back, take a breath, and reassess your goals. Absolutely. Fantastic suggestion. Quarterly resets also let you address how people are participating. So you want to do weekly one-on-ones with your teams, etc. But if you're consulting, you're doing something like that, I write down the goals for the business from day one. So I have a notebook or something like that, and I'll write down the goals that they've given me for the business for day one. I'll put impactful goals that I think make a difference on there as well. I'll then review those with those parties that need to be consulted and get their feedback from that, those shareholders. And then what I'll do is I will update our progress to each one of those things as the month moves forward. And you'll see very quickly after 1 month or 2 months that they're not trying to get to the goals that they say they are because they're not following this, or they are, and they're moving ahead, so they're escalating the results more quickly and they're after more rapidly, and then that can let you adjust which ones are more important based on the action you've seen and based on what they think is most important. If you do that by a quarter, you should have an understanding of what they're putting their energy towards and what actually is first versus what is not. And then you can reassess and reevaluate. I do an assessment whenever I do a consulting type gig. I do an assessment from day one to see what people mean versus what they're actually doing. And from that assessment, those goals are derived, and then you progress through that based on what's most important to the business and what's most important based on the energy they're putting out. Okay. That's the best thing about being a consultant is you're not a decision maker. They have to make their decisions. So you give them the options, and then they pick an option, and they should be moved forward with those options. You can build a budget and you can do all these things, but if they don't stick to it, that's on them. You're not the decision maker. You're just saying these are the tools that get you where you want to be. This is where you want to be. This is the roadmap. And if they don't take the roadmap, that's on them. That's why this quarterly assessment makes a lot of sense, because not only do you rejuvenate and get your energy, but each time you hit a quarter and you have that review and you give that to the stakeholders and say, this is what we're doing, this is what we're seeing, this is what we said we wanted to do. This is the difference, and how do you want to change the gap? And so what you're doing is you're addressing that delta, and that's the biggest thing that you want to bring their feedback into, the feedback of the shareholders. And then when you do that, you just reassess each quarter. So you don't have to go all the way back. Well, you remember when we had, nope. We had the last meeting last quarter. This is what we said. That was the starting point. This is where we're at now because of what's happened and what we said since then. So if you do that, it keeps it updated and keeps it taking step after step, so you're not stuck in one place and nobody feels like you're sitting there churning water. Also, you may find out through these quarterly results that these people don't really want what they told you they wanted. So your result in the beginning based on what they said versus what you're going to get in may not be there, and you can deliver that at that time too. You can also cut waste and get out if you see that they're not going to progress through what they said, because you don't want to have your productivity or your effectiveness judged by people that aren't doing what's necessary to do their part. So as a consultant, that matters, but also in different roles, that matters too. Put your energy where it's going to be recognized and appreciated, and document out the things that aren't being addressed. So that's great about quarterly results. Number 9, this person suggests daily exercise, energy plus motion. It does control your emotions. The more you exercise, the less you're going to feel anxious, the less you're going to have those things. And how you eat matters too, guys. If you eat a bunch of carbs and sugar, you're going to have problems with anxiety and depression and all these things. So plus you're not going to be able to sleep, and you're not going to have those things. So daily exercise and diet, it does matter. So pay attention to that. Number 10, he says, focus on the 4 W's of work. Systems that give you freedom to control the 4 W's in life. Who, what, where, and when of your work. So the who, what, when, and I've heard it said better elsewhere, but that's true. You want to make sure that each key piece of what you're doing, you have those who, what, where, and when's addressed. So you have that in mind. So that's a short article, short video on 10 habits that may vastly improve your work life. And it came from Matt Gray on LinkedIn. If this is useful and you like subject matter such as these, please like, please subscribe. I'm Ben. Be good.